very much talked about holiday. We had an absolute ball. It was a wonderful time. Walked everywhere, and this was at the end of March. The weather was absolutely fantastic. It wasn't too hot. Many times it was almost like we were just us in the mountains. You couldn't see anyone around. You know, coming home every night, then sitting down, having limoncello with olives and dips and bread, and lots of laughter, lots of fun, which was really great. Everything was just homegrown. The people had even made their own wine. The whole family was working in the restaurant. The grandparents, the parents, the children, and it was absolutely exciting. It was very, very good.
I'm a bit of a chicken when it comes to wild animals, and I thought that it would be more scary than fun. But I loved every single moment of it. The absolute most amazing experience was on our final day. We went on a game drive just as dawn started to break. We turned a corner, and coming up behind us was a herd of elephants. So we just stopped the vehicle and we sat there, and I reckon we sat there for about 5 or 10 minutes and just waited for this herd of elephants to wander up towards us as the sun was rising in the distance. And it was just the most beautiful, peaceful feeling. And then next thing, we're in the middle of this herd of elephants, and they just wandered straight past us without a care in the world. And there was this little baby elephant who was so inquisitive. He came right up to the vehicle, and like, you could have reached out and touched it. Of course, you wouldn't actually do that. But it was just one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had in my life. And I loved every single moment of it.
We got to a place called El Calafate, which is sort of like the gateway to the Florida Marina Glacier. We were actually like a kilometre away, and we weren't allowed to go any closer because the bits that were falling off that looked like they were, you know, the size of your garbage bin were the size of a car or a house. He said, this is the moment you've been preparing all your life. It's not one of the 8 wonders of the world, but it's the one that they started counting the others from. And it was just the most mind-blowing place we've ever been to. And then he just left us on this viewing platform. And Karsten and I looked at one another going, he's left us here. He said 4 hours. 4, you know, and we're going 4 hours, and he's going, yes, 4 hours, I'll come back and get you. And we're like, what are we going to do on this viewing platform for 4 hours? There's nothing to do other than this glacier. But we sat there just transfixed at this glacier carving. The roar was just amazing, and just to see the wash come back and sort of, you know, we'd all get a little bit wet, and then we'd sit there and we'd just wait for the next one to happen. It was just unbelievable. It was a really, really great tour.
Most of my friends were very focused on going to Israel and finding their roots and blah, 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 and I've never been that person. I've never felt more Jewish than I did when we were in Israel, and the peak of it all was when we did a tour of the old city. And I'm watching all these people going, oh my goodness, they're so here, they're so in the moment, they're so connected. And then I get to the Wailing Wall, and I just looked, and it literally is just a wall. But all of a sudden I felt this stuff come over me, and I pulled out the Shema, which is like a very special prayer, and I touched the wall, and I felt, I can't even explain it. It was just incredible, and it was visceral, and it was my entire heritage and my traditions, and everything just poured out of me. It was a really poignant moment in my life.
I grew up watching Party of 5 and Full House, which was set in San Fran. So to go and see the Golden Gate Bridge was just amazing to me. And I'd had this picture of what it would look like in real life, and it was just as beautiful. I was really surprised. On TV I pictured it real red, but it's more an orangey, deep kind of colour. And Alcatraz. I watched the movie with my dad as a teenager, and to be there and to go in the cells and everything, it was just amazing. I thought the boys would be bored because they were only 14 and 10 at the time, but they loved it. It was amazing. And we went to this little Brazilian barbecue place called Fogo de Chão, and
Doesn't matter where we go, what restaurant, what meat place we go to, the boys still say, nah, still not as good as photo. They just loved it. So everything still gets compared to that 4 or 5 years on. So yeah, I really love San Francisco, and it opened the boys' eyes to the world of travel, and now they're really interested in travelling, and we've got this long list of places we hope we're lucky enough to visit one day.
Having the opportunity to go to Antarctica was a dream destination, and one that I didn't think I was going to be able to do until I was old and retired. Going to South Georgia and seeing the king penguins came true on a morning where you're woken up by your expedition leader and you head out onto the deck and you're in this tiny quiet bay where all of a sudden you're in chills because the mountains are so huge, everything's so quiet, being surrounded by seas of king penguins, and to walk Shackleton's steps into Stromness and relive his journey as you're reading diary extracts was the most amazing thing. I still get chills when I think about seeing raw scenery, something out of like a prehistoric era. Yeah, so I think I was very lucky to be able to experience that, and it's something that's going to be very, very hard to beat.
Arrival at our Katakati tented site in the Serengeti was just amazing. After dinner, we were just sitting by a bonfire, and in the distance, this almighty roar of a lion reverberated through your heart. Not a lot of sleep that night, but the next morning, up we get very early aboard the hot air balloon. Beautiful sunrise as we just gently glided over the Serengeti, and it made you realise how vast the African continent is. We saw a big water hole coming up. There were animals in there. And as we came closer, the hot air balloon basket went quite low, right over the hippos that were in this water, and there were a lot of them. And as I leant over the basket, one of them opened up its mouth, like massive wide mouth, and saw these 4 tusks that were just, I could just about touch them. Thankfully, the basket started to take off and we continued on our journey. They say part of your heart remains in Africa, and that's definitely the case because I can't wait to get back there.
My favourite memory, which still makes me hyperventilate to this day, was leaving Fez and heading to the Mazuga Desert and watching the temperature on the car go up to 50 degrees outside, and knowing that when we get to the desert that we do have to go on a camel ride. For anyone that knows me, I don't like animals. They scare the life out of me. So I was pretty much hanging off the back of the camel while we went out over the dunes. And like a movie scene, we were hit with sandstorms. And one of the sandstorms was that bad that we had to get off the camel and crouch down between both camels and hide under whatever we could while the sand just blasted us. But all I could think about was I have to get back onto this camel again. So I did, I made it, and we finished in Marrakesh. The souks through the Grand Medina, and our last night sitting on a rooftop terrace and just listening to the call to prayer. And I just love that. I just loved Morocco completely.
It was our first trip to Paris together as a couple. We both, I guess, just really loved the city itself, just something about that French culture. So many things to see and do in the city. Easy to walk around through the cobblestone streets, getting on the metro and just going around and seeing all the sights. Stopping at a cafe and having a pastry and sitting down and outside on the streets and watching the world go by and all the people walk by. I remember Amy's face lighting up with excitement as we walked down onto the balcony of the hotel. That was pretty special to have the 2, I guess, most iconic landmarks of the city. Justin Bieber was actually staying at the hotel at the same time, which was something that we didn't know, but we came back from dinner one night and just felt like celebrities in a way as we walked back into the hotel with everyone watching us and staring at us, so that was pretty funny. We always get drawn back to Paris because of our love for the city, so hopefully one day soon when we're allowed to travel again, we'll be able to get back and make some more memories.
One of my favourite places in Japan is Kyoto because it's the cultural hub of the country. I was fortunate enough to go in late April, but was able to still see cherry blossoms, which are one of my favourite things there. We did a cycling tour around the actual township of Kyoto, which is beautiful. Visited a golden pavilion, took lots of photos there, it was stunning. Visited a Shinto shrine as well. Just a really nice little town, great food, great people. My favourite part was Gion, where I was able to see some geishas as well. They're not really ones to take photos with, they'll run away, but I was actually fortunate enough to capture one of them in a photo, so it was very special to see that as well. So yes, I'd thoroughly recommend going to Kyoto. It's just beautiful.
So we went to the historic city of Cartagena, which is so beautiful, distinguished for an Spanish colonial architecture. People over there is extremely kind and joyful. The place is full of life and night, and it also has lots of hotels, boutiques, restaurants, and tourists. Close by, we found San Felipe de Barajas Castle, which is an iconic landmark of the city. This place has a remarkable story stretching back over 480 years. We were given a tour inside the castle and around it. We explored the tunnels and we finished the day taking photos outside the fortress while we were spotting the Caribbean Sea on the horizon, as well as the most popular neighborhood called Boca Grande, which gives a hint of modernity to this old city.
Ever since I was growing up as a child in New Zealand, we used to go on lots of day trips. And one of my favourite was when we went to Waitakere Falls. This is where my love of waterfalls began. Since then, I've managed to visit 3 of the top waterfalls of the world. The first was Iguazu on the border of Argentina and Brazil, where you can walk out onto a big ramp and look at the falls on the Argentinian side, and then you can take a boat ride out to Devil's Throat. The second was when I went to Niagara Falls on the border of the US and Canada, did the Maid of the Mist tour. So then last year I went to Victoria Falls on the border of Zambia and Zimbabwe. This time I took a few hikes down to the falls, and then I did a helicopter ride over the falls, which was absolutely magnificent. I'm not sure why all these waterfalls are on the borders of 2 countries, and I'm hoping that after this pandemic I get time to go out and visit some more.